You have been to a funeral, maybe more than one. You wore black. You said quiet things to people who didn't need words. You stood in a room built specifically for grief, with flowers arranged just so, and the program printed with a name and 2 dates. It felt ancient. It felt like something humans have always done. But the real answer is far stranger and far older than you think. 70,000 years ago, in a cave in the Zagros Mountains, something happened that shouldn't have happened. Not according to the old story you were taught. A body was placed in the ground. Around it, pollen. Not accidental pollen, blown in by wind or dragged in by rodents. Clustered pollen. Yarrow, cornflower, grape hyacinth. Flowers. For decades, this discovery sat at the center of a beautiful idea. That even Neanderthals, the supposedly brutish cousins of modern humans, buried their dead with bouquets. That grief, real grief, tender and deliberate, stretched back before our own species even existed. The site is called Shanidar Cave. The archaeologist who first dug there was Ralph Selecki, and what he found in the 1960s rewrote what people believed a caveman was capable of feeling. Here's the strange part. The flower burial might not even be the strangest thing about it, because death, for early humans, was never simple. It wasn't a single ritual, performed the same way, generation after generation, like a recipe passed down. It was a puzzle, a problem to solve, and different groups in different caves on different continents solved it in wildly different ways. Some buried their dead curled into a ball, knees pulled to the chest, like a person sleeping or a person about to be born again. Archaeologist Paul Pettit, who has spent decades studying Paleolithic burial practices, has argued that this fetal position wasn't just practical. It may have been symbolic. A body returned to the shape it arrived in. Some buried their dead standing straight up. Some buried them lying on a bed of red ochre, a mineral pigment ground into powder and scattered so thickly over the body that archaeologists thousands of years later would find bones still stained rust red. Why red? Nobody knows for certain. But red is the color of blood. Red is the color of life leaving a body, and red pigment shows up next to human remains on nearly every continent, in cultures that never met each other, never spoke to each other, never shared a single word of language. Doesn't that feel strange to you? 2 groups of humans, separated by oceans and thousands of years, independently deciding that the color of dying deserved the same color. Some early humans didn't bury their dead at all. At Sungir, a site in what is now Russia, archaeologists uncovered 2 children buried head to head, dressed in clothing sewn with roughly 10,000 ivory beads each. 10,000 beads. Each one hand-carved from mammoth tusk, each one taking, by some estimates, close to an hour to make. That means each child's burial outfit alone represented thousands of hours of collective labor, before you even consider the burial itself. Think about that for a moment. In a world without metal tools, without agriculture, without permanent houses, a community chose to spend that much time. Not on shelter, not on food, on the dead. Why would you do that? This is where the story gets uncomfortable, in the best way. Because the honest answer is, we still don't fully know. But researchers have theories, and they are not small ones. One theory, championed by evolutionary anthropologists studying the emergence of mortuary behavior, suggests burial wasn't originally about honoring the dead at all. It may have started as something closer to hygiene. A decomposing body attracts scavengers. It attracts disease. Burying it, or covering it in stone, kept the living safe. Under this theory, ritual came later. Meaning was added on top of a practical solution. the way a plain wooden box eventually became a carved coffin, and the carved coffin eventually became a ceremony. Another theory points somewhere else entirely, somewhere inside the human mind. Anthropologist Chris Stringer has spent his career tracing the emergence of modern human cognition. And one thread running through that research is this: burial may be evidence of something enormous happening inside the brain. The moment a species starts treating a corpse differently than an object, differently than a fallen tree or a dead animal, that species has crossed a line. It has started to imagine. It has started to ask what happens next. Not scientifically, not with certainty, but with the kind of dread and hope that only a mind capable of imagining its own non-existence can produce. In other words, the grave might be one of the oldest pieces of evidence we have that humans became aware they were going to die. Sit with that for a second. Every time you've ever lain awake at 2 a.m., turning over the same quiet, unanswerable question, you